You know, something about National Action Network conventions that everybody turns into a preacher up here.
I hear you, Doc.
I don't know, they get between me and Richardson and the spirit started.
I hear you, Ray.
Start quoting scriptures and ran back and hollering.
Oh, God.
Our next candidate, and then we're going to break into our sessions. Angela Rye is going to bring Mothers of the Movement on. But this young man has been a true, in my judgment, and consistent fighter for human rights and civil rights. He also from Texas, but he's also sat at the helm of government as the HUD Secretary. He is now running for President of the United States. He put reparations on the table in this race. And we are happy to welcome him back. He was here as Secretary of HUD. He's been here several occasions, but now he comes as a candidate for President of the United States, the Honorable Julian Castro.
Buenos dias. Good morning. It's still morning, I think. First of all, like everybody else, let me just start by expressing my deep appreciation to you, Reverend Al, for your activism, for your advocacy, for your voice, for everything that you have done, not just in organizing this conference, but more importantly, over the years, to make sure that this country can live up to the words in its founding documents and then go beyond. Thank you very much for that leadership. Thank you as well to all of the board and the organizers of National Action Network. It's good to be back with you all here in New York City. Tom and I were here 3 years ago. I want to give a shout out to my former colleague in the Obama administration, Tom Perez, for the great job that he's doing at the DNC. So, you know, these days I feel like I need a name tag because I have a twin brother, Joaquin, and my twin brother likes to go around saying that the way to tell us apart is that I'm a minute uglier than he is, which is not true. But he's the one in Congress that you see sometimes on TV. It was his resolution that the Senate recently voted on to block the declaration of a national emergency. You know, my brother and I grew up on the west side of San Antonio with my mother and my grandmother. My grandmother had come over to the United States from Mexico when she was 7 years old, when she was a little girl and her sister was a couple of years younger, because her parents had died. And so she ended up with her closest relatives in San Antonio. They pulled her out of school, so she never finished elementary school, and because of that, she worked as a maid, a cook, and a babysitter. She raised my mom as a single parent. And my mom raised my brother and me as a single parent after the age of 8 when our parents split up. My brother and I are proud graduates of the public schools of San Antonio, Texas. And I had the blessing of getting to go to college and to law school with my brother because I couldn't get rid of him. And then getting to go home and to serve on the San Antonio City Council. I got elected at the age of 26. I served for 4 years. Lost a close race for mayor in 2005. I was 30 years old, trying to become the youngest elected mayor in the city's history and running against a guy that was 70 years old, trying to become the second oldest. He turned out to be a good mayor, and we had strict term limits, so 4 years later I came back and I won and became mayor of my hometown. and I served as mayor for 5 years, from '09 to '14, until I got a call on April 16, 2014, from President Barack Obama. And I remember the date because it's not every day that you get a call from the president asking you if you want a job. Right? I had just driven through the drive-thru at Panda Express. And you know how on your cell phone sometimes it says unknown or block call? It said private. So if you ever get a call that says private, answer it. Right? I did answer it, and it was the president, and I served the last 2.5 years of the administration as the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. During that time, I got to travel to 100 different communities in 39 states to see the ways that our country, our communities, especially our urban neighborhoods, are grappling with poverty and lack of affordable housing and lack of a good education, good job opportunities, food deserts, police brutality, so many of the things that connect the dots of quality of life and economic opportunity. During that time, we managed a $48 billion budget with 8,000 employees and 54 field offices across the country. I'm running for president because I believe that it's time for a new vision with new energy and new leadership in the White House. I'm running because I believe it's time for a president that represents all Americans and understands that we need to move forward in the years to come as one nation with one destiny. And that destiny for us is to be the smartest, the healthiest, the fairest, and the most prosperous nation on earth. Let me say that one more time. The smartest, the healthiest, the fairest, and the most prosperous nation on earth. If we're going to be the smartest nation, it means that we need to start early. We need universal pre-K for 3- and 4-year-olds in our country so that everybody gets a strong start in life. We need to improve our public schools, our K-12 education. There are too many folks that are forgotten right now. I grew up in one of the poorest school districts in Texas. I know that we can do a lot better, and I believe that we need to invest in our public schools, pay teachers what they deserve, make sure that no matter what the needs of a student are, that those needs can be met at the school they go to. And instead of spending so much money on police security, spend money on the students and making sure that they actually get ahead. I also believe that we need to make higher education universal. Our public universities, our community colleges, apprenticeship programs, job training programs. And the thing is that y'all will remember that a generation or two ago, it was very common for the University of California system, the University of Texas system, other public university systems to be free or almost free. Except at that time, not everybody had access to those places. We need to make sure that everybody has access and that they can get tuition-free higher education. If we're going to be the healthiest nation on earth, it means that we need a different healthcare system. I believe that everybody should have Medicare in this country if they want it. I grew up with a grandmother that had diabetes. And I remember when I was growing up that she would go into the other room and she would inject herself with insulin. We've seen the cost of insulin more than double in the last 7 years. Throughout that time, she had Medicare. Right before she died in 1996, she had to have one of her feet amputated, which you all know is a very common thing for people with severe diabetes. But the fact that she had Medicare meant that she could get the care she needed. There is no human being in this country that should go without the health care they need when they need it. If we're going to be the fairest nation on earth, it means that in our criminal justice system, everybody is innocent until proven guilty, no matter the color of your skin or how much money you have or don't have. We need to ensure that we build on the First Step Act and reform our criminal justice system, that we do things like legalize marijuana, that we encourage communities to go back and expunge the records of too many people who have been caught up in this criminal justice system and locked behind bars for small-level offenses, that we reform our bail system so that folks don't sit in jail for months and months just because they can't afford $200 or $300 or $500 for bail. It also means that we build on the work of President Obama's task force on policing in the 21st century. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I was in Charleston, South Carolina, 2 blocks away from the Mother Emanuel AME Church, where 4 years ago, Dylan Roof went in and he murdered 9 people. And then a few hours later, he was apprehended without incident, as he should be. But if Dylan Roof can be apprehended without incident, then what about Eric Garner and Walter Scott and Michael Brown and Philando Castile, and what about Sandra Bland and Stephon Clark? No matter what the color of your skin is, you deserve justice in this country. If we're going to be the fairest nation, it also means that women have to get equal pay for equal work. You know, I grew up with a mother that was a hellraiser when she was young. She was a Chicana activist in the late 1960s and early 1970s, and to this day, she always carries a red purse to symbolize women's pay equality. There are things that we need to do in this country that have been a long time in coming. One of those is to move forward with reparations. You know, I have said many times during the last several weeks that I've long believed that our country will never truly heal until we address the original sin of slavery. I've said that if under our Constitution that we compensate people if we take their property, why wouldn't we compensate people who were considered property and sanctioned by the state? I support Congresswoman Jackson Lee's H.R. 40 to appoint a commission to make a recommendation to the President of the United States on how we can do reparations in this country. And I believe that for the black community, for the white community, for every other American, that it's important to address that original sin. And until we do, we may feel like we're moving forward as one nation, but I don't think that we ever will. Right? If we're going to be the most prosperous nation on earth, it means prosperity for everybody. We need to raise the minimum wage again in the United States so that people get a living wage. It's been 10 years since 2009 that we raised the minimum wage. We need to make sure that we invest in things like affordable housing. You know, if we were to go through the transcripts of all of the debates, Republican and Democrat, over the last 40 years, or maybe more, I bet you that there wasn't one single question about housing, even though there's so many people, so many families in our country that are paying 40, 50, 60, 70% of their income in rent. We have a rental affordability crisis. We need to invest in the ability of people who are poor and lower middle class and middle class to have a safe, decent place to live in the years to come. And finally, we need to reform our immigration system. Yesterday, I proposed the People First immigration plan. I don't buy the BS that women and children and families coming to our southern border pose a national security threat to the United States of America. I don't believe that they are criminals. I don't believe that they should be treated as criminals. I believe that we need to repeal Section 1325 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, that we need to stop family detention in this country, that we need to reunite the little children who have been separated from their families, that we need to increase the number of refugees, because refugees have added so much to our nation over the years, from all the different places that they've come from. I believe that we don't have to choose between a secure border and compassion. Y'all will remember that a year ago, this president, his administration basically told us that if we could just be cruel enough to separate little children from their mothers, that would deter, it would stop other families from coming to the border. And in fact, more families are coming. He's asking you to choose cruelty. I want you to choose compassion. We have a border that is more secure than it ever has been. We can maintain its security and also act like decent human beings while we do it. And in the long run, we need a 21st century version of the Marshall Plan for Central America and Latin America, so that people can find safety and opportunity there in their home country, instead of having to knock on the doorstep of the United States, and both of us benefit. I want to thank you all very much for having me here today. I look forward to the campaign ahead. You know, there are 15 or 16 people that are running, and some folks have asked me, well, you know, you're not a front runner right now. And I tell them, I wasn't born a front runner. I didn't grow up a front runner. There are a whole bunch of folks that didn't grow up a front runner. A lot of folks in our country right now that don't feel like a front runner, but they know how to work. They know how to get out there. They know how to scrap. I'm going to go and work hard. I'm going to do the things that our families do. And I believe that with your support, with your help, that by the time February 3rd, 2020 comes around, the Iowa caucus, that I will be a front runner. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you all very much.
Well, he answered my questions in his speech. Give him a hand, Julian Castro. I want to thank our board members sitting in. I'm going to bring on the panels now. We're going to work. Reverend Steffi Bartley, who heads our NAN Tech World in Newark, 30,000 square feet. You need to go see it. He's on the board. Former Mayor of Richmond, Virginia, Dwight Jones, raise your hand. On the board, Jennifer Jones Austin. On the board, Reverend Malone of Louisville, Kentucky. On the board, Reverend Turner, pastor from Memphis, Tennessee. On the board, David Jefferson, pastor of Metropolitan Baptist in Newark. On the board, and Dawn Jones, Harlem activist, on the board.